So, there's a response to my video. So as many of you may know, there was some insinuations that I may or may not have, and we've already discussed it, so I'm not going to get into too many details, but there was a rumor that I was caught drunk being carried to bed by a dwarf, and we've talked about that, and how there was no evidence and all this. Well, the lovely Sonofqueen claims that they may in fact have evidence of this, and photographic evidence in fact, and wants to know if I would be willing to discuss that and if there is some about posting it or something like that. It doesn't matter, darling, because it's obviously false. I would never be caught in the arms of that particular dwarf, as you called it. And frankly, sure, bring the photographic evidence. I have nothing to fear, I have nothing to hide, and so sure, bring it forth. If it exists, which I highly doubt, darlings. Because it doesn't. It doesn't. As I said before, there was some aid given, you know, but it was mostly a misunderstanding. I was able to walk. The dwarf in question did not realize that and tripped me into his arms for half a moment. And if there's any photographic evidence of that, it will show that it was a trip and not a real carry. And anyhow, darling, once again, this was the type of occasion that was supposed to remain completely whatever happens stays there. It was not supposed to be something that anything that happened became generally, publicly acknowledged. And so, you know, I'm not really sure if this was sort of a trap set up by you dwarves to sort of ruin my character or something like that, because that is honestly what it seems like now, in light of this false evidence that you're offering, which I don't believe for a moment, darling. And, you know, we've been friends for quite a long time, but it feels like you are up to something. So, bring forth this evidence, and if it exists, I will discuss it. But until then, I know that there's none. If there was, I would have known. If there was any photographs taken, I would have known about it, darling. I'm an elf. I have keen senses. I'd be well aware if there was any photographs taken, which of course there were not. So, I have no worries, no fears. Bring it forth. Bring it, wherever it is. Scrounge it up, manufacture it. I'm sure that's what you're going to have to do. Photo manipulation or whatever it is. Because that's the only way you're going to have it. That hallway was too dark. Not that I was carried, of course. I'm not saying I was really carried, you know. It is brief, as I've mentioned before. It's just a brief little thing, mostly a trip. And you know, I have nothing to fear, and I do remember now everything that happened, and I could see how someone might have, by accident, misinterpreted some of that as one thing or another, but it wasn't. That's not what it was. And the photograph, if it existed, which it doesn't, would show that, but of course it doesn't exist, so there's no worry about it, darling. And really, why would I let, of all people, that dwarf carry me to bed? It's just so outrageous. This entire thing, it's this ongoing rumor mill that's trying to set up two people that couldn't hate each other more. And honestly, darling, I appreciate all the effort and everything that you're putting into it, but just save it for yourself. Use that effort for something that's real, something that's good, instead of trying to set me up on this crazy rumor that isn't even true. Because, you know, I first of all, if anyone knew what happened, it would be me, and I know there was no photograph taken, none of that ever happened. I only have a couple moments of what's it called? Blackout. I don't normally drink that much, but, there was something really strong about the whiskey that was served that night. And honestly, it's impossible for there to be a photo. That's just completely impossible. And so I'm not worried. I'm not worried in the slightest about it because it doesn't exist. There's no worry whatsoever. So so sure, find me some false evidence. I'll be waiting right here, clear conscience, because nothing happened. So, thank you again, darling, for stirring up the rumor. I know how much fun you have with that sort of thing. And I would love to see this fake image that you've managed to pull up. For copies for myself, you know. I wanted to have a look at them and a little bit of a laugh here or there. So, until then, darlings, ta-ta.